reds going on, some dark reds. This is North Volney, east of Oswego, east of Minetto, east of Route 48 and 481, New Haven, New Mexico here. You can't really see too much, I would say, maybe of a hook. Let me see if I can clean up the radar here a little bit to give you a better idea of what we're looking at as far as the storm. Those just coming into this breaking weather situation, we have a tornado warning. I'll go over to our alert map here and let everybody know what is actually happening with the storm. Okay, so that warning is in effect right now until 8:15 this evening. It does include sections of central and southwestern Oswego County and places like Minetto, Dexterville, Fulton, you're in the warning, North Volney, New Haven to south of Scriba, near Scriba actually, Mexico, Palermo, Gilbert Mills, and Roosevelt Corners. So if you're any of those towns and villages, you need to be inside. You need to text and call somebody and say this is a bad storm and they need to get indoors immediately. Let's get over to the radar here, and I want to just kind of clean up the radar so we can have just maybe the Minetto radar only here, or excuse me, the Montague radar only. Let's see if I can get that up on the screen for us here. And that would allow us to kind of do a little better look at some of the spin particularly with this storm. Let's see if I can get this going for us here. And we will get over to some safety tips with the tornado warning as well, as we don't get these very often. We did have some on Monday. If you remember Monday, this is a similar situation, but not exactly the same as what happened on Monday. So let's turn off the Buffalo radar and the Binghamton radar and just work with the Montague one here just for a moment. And I want to show you here what's looking like, you know, kind of it's a cluster of storms. And when we see these on radar, when Doppler radar indicates potential rotation, we're going to show you what's called the radial velocity. It just means if winds are going in different directions, very close to each other to allow for a spin in the storm itself. So right now I am looking at Oswego over to Mexico. Here's a lot of thunder, lightning going on here with the lightning bolts. Ramona Beach up towards northern sections of Oswego County. And here's the lakeshore right here. But the storm is kind of, looks to me a little semi-disorganized, but if the storm is actually producing the tornado, what happens is there's actually, imagine you have a rolling pin and you're rolling like cookie dough on a counter. That rolling pin is like this, and then eventually a downdraft will hit that rolling of air and pivot it like so and try to bring that down to the ground, and it's actually upward motion of air that can cause a lot of damage. First, let's get over to, let's see here. Let's give you some tornado safety tips, and then we will talk about, again, more on the warning itself. If you've ever experienced a tornado warning, I'll tell you this. It is certainly rare, but not the rarest, I guess, in central New York, because we've had them recently this summer, especially earlier this week. And right now, here's some things you can do if you're in that warning zone in Oswego County. They always say the basement is the best place to be in a storm. Why? Because you've got concrete walls surrounding you and the outside. You don't have windows usually in a basement. That's some good protection. If you do have a window in the basement, you want to get as far from that as possible, but stay in the interior section of the basement. If you don't have a basement, the next best recommendation would be an interior closet away from windows, because that way at least you're protected by walls. They also say a good recommendation that I've heard recently too is if you have any kind of helmet or something you can put on your head, a mattress covering you up, blankets, like quilts, something that's kind of thick to block out any broken glass or debris from hitting you, your family, your loved ones, that would be a great recommendation to take on as well. Besides that, I would also add into the mix here for safety tips, your cell phone. Hopefully it's charged. So if you do lose power, and I would probably think there's going to be some power outages with this storm because of the high winds. Even if you don't get tornadic winds, you just get straight line damaging winds all in the same direction. Trees, utility poles can be knocked down. Have your charger, maybe you've got it for your car, so at least keep your phone charged if you lose power, because then if you don't have, of course, Wi-Fi, you'll be using data to try to communicate to friends and family that you've lost power, and maybe if you've gotten damage. So it's kind of a fail-safe there, having that phone charged. Radio is always, of course, great, and of course, you can always stream us on our CNY Central Mobile News app on your phone. If you're not watching us on TV, you can watch us on our website or mobile app too. And lastly here, again, I mentioned this, covering the head and neck, because when these storms come through, even with non-tornadic winds, even though there's no tornado, there's a lot of strong wind way high in the atmosphere. I was looking at this with meteorologist Peter Hall the past few evenings, and we were saying it looks like a lot of wind tonight or today like there was back on Monday, and it's just a matter of that downdraft pulling it down and bring it down to the surface, for it to cause damage. All right, let's get back over to the alert map and then we'll look at the radar some more. Again, if you're just joining us here, we have a tornado warning for central and southwestern sections of Oswego County until 8:15 this evening. And it looks like they're trying to, at least the way that the National Weather Service issues these warnings, they've got a couple overlapping here. Severe thunderstorm warning for northeastern sections of Oswego County, but the main tornado warning right here, I kind of highlight it for you here. Looks like it is, again, they said still 7:51. So, you know, that's another minute here. Looks like they're trying to condense the warnings down, in my opinion here. But the bottom line is we're looking at some heavy weather here coming through. Let's get over to the radar for you and talk about, you know, where the storm is, where it's going, who is in the path. We'll do some storm tracking as well. Okay. So here's where I do see maybe a better indication of maybe some rotation here between North Volney and Munger's Corners. See a little bit of pink here going on? That sometimes can be on one side of the rotating part of the storm, can produce hail. I'll tell you this, we've had a history already today of seeing some hail. I believe we got a phone call from a viewer up in Redfield. They called and said they had some hail earlier from some storms coming through, and that could certainly be the case here as well. So we're kind of focusing on the central part of Oswego County between Palermo, Munger's Corners, and just southeast of North Volney. That would be my estimate of somewhere in this area, possibly this little hook right here. If I can draw it for you, that would be also a good way to view it. Let's see if I can do that for you here. So right in this zone here, it's kind of tough to see maybe. I put a little arrow kind of showing maybe the movement of some of the wind. Let me do a little bit better for you, job. Let's see here. Let's do it like this. This could be a little bit of an inflow notch, I mean winds are coming in the storm, and this could be a little bit of a rotating part there. Okay, so if you can see right here on the screen, it's kind of tough maybe a little bit to see that. You got winds coming into the storm like this and around the storm like that. And the other thing we look at when we talk about the potential for rotation here would be maybe how are the winds, you know, the speeds going on here. Let's take a look at here. This is called the radial velocity. This is actually where we start to see a little bit of spin. It doesn't show it so much here, maybe a little bit over closer to Palermo here, a little bit difference of the reds and the greens. So that's just something I like to look at here when we look at the potential here for maybe some damage with the storm if it actually is rotating and causing circular damage with the wind versus straight line wind damage. Okay, we're going to get back over to, let's go back over to the radar just for a moment, and I want to make sure that we are staying on top of the storm for you, trying to alert anybody else in the path of the storm. I want to do that next. Let's show you, we show you where it is now, and let me get over to the information here. It looks like it's moving east at 25 miles per hour roughly. So what we'll do is this whole cluster of storms, I'm going to draw this and move it off to the east, okay? Let's do this and show you some potential areas, even if it's not a tornado, if it's just wind, heavy rain, thunder, lightning, maybe some hail. Here are some towns that may be seeing the storm in the next, say, half hour to 45 minutes here. We're at 7:52. So here you go. Hastings at 7:56, Altmar 8:01, Bardeen Corners 8:04, Happy Valley 8:12, Kessogue at 8:18, Dutch Settlement 8:21, Amboy 8:31, East Amboy 8:33, Florence at 8:46. So if any of those town names ring a bell or you know someone in those towns or villages, please take this storm seriously. The threat for a tornado is certainly there. Is it guaranteed to be on the ground? We just don't know yet. Of course, we do have some spots like Syracuse still dealing with some sun at this hour. Otherwise, there will be some heavy rain, thunder, and lightning. Looks like they did condense that warning I thought they would. They had it kind of expanded over towards western sections of the county here, and now it looks like it's kind of more centrally located. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can catch a couple more towns and or villages with this warning. We thank you for checking out our coverage here tonight on this, and we will stay with you through the end of the warning here, 8:15, giving you important information, safety tips, tracking the storm, and let you know what you can expect. And of course, anything else that is pertinent to this. Samantha Cross will be joining me in a little bit. We'll get some more information too outside of the weather world, but maybe some impacts from the weather to share with you all as well. Right now in South Scriba, you are in the tornado warning down towards Volney, North Volney, Mexico, Munger's Corners, Palermo, north and south on Route 3 through Oswego County. That spot is in the warning area as well. Catfish Corners, just north of Pete Corners, and actually areas kind of crossing over here, say between, it's not quite up towards Route 104 here, it's a little bit more to the north, but still close enough to Route 104 where it still could be impacting it as we go through, say, the next half hour or so. Okay, back over to the radar here. I really think it's important to know that it's not just this one spot. There are other severe warnings going on in northeastern Oswego County, Jefferson, Lewis, and sections of the Mohawk Valley as well. The Syracuse area is not under a warning at this time. So if you're watching tonight in Syracuse and you're saying, well, storm, what storm? It is certainly a hyper-localized type of severe weather here. Of course, we like to track this if it is a tornado, if it is on the ground, because it's causing a lot of damage, usually with wind, in a very kind of small, compact area. So as it moves, it's almost like having a car out of control on the highway, and it just kind of just hits random things like that. So we need to track this for you in real time. I do want to take a look here at the radar again, and I would say this. The potential here for maybe hail is possible. We do have the dark reds going on. Clifford, Palermo, Munger's Corners, Vermilion is a town I'm not familiar with here. County Route 35, Route 4. And yes, there have been some storms today that produced some hail up into northeastern Oswego County. Redfield, we got a viewer calling in for some hail reported there. So it certainly could happen with this storm as well. Let's widen out the view and show you a couple other areas here. You can see it just looks like a kind of a, at least on this radar view, semi-disorganized type of storm. So I think with the potential here for some storms coming through, at least you're going to get heavy rain, at least thunder and lightning, and probably some strong gusty winds. Whether they're tornadic remains to be seen. I was just told by our producer, Lane, that we do have a photo from Oswego showing the storm as it came through the area there, and we can take a look at that if it's possible. Sam, what do you have for us?
All right, Josh, and again, thank you everyone so much for joining us. We're taking a look right now at the SUNY Oswego Hart Hall camera, and you can see rain just off the shores of Lake Ontario right now. The sun peeking through a little bit. Again, if you're just joining us now, there is a tornado warning in Oswego County until 8:15. And Josh, at this moment, I'm wondering, what do people need to know right now in this direct moment?
Great question, Sam. In this moment now, I would say it's great that we have this live ability to get information out to people. They need to take this seriously. We don't have these warnings a lot in our viewing area. I know we had some back on Monday, but in general, it is not a common thing for Central New York to have a tornado warning. So we're talking about potential here for windows, structures, cars, all to be impacted. Trees is almost a given, even if we don't see the rotation with wind hitting it down in this direction, this direction, this direction, etc. Straight line winds or general damaging wind gusts can still cause a lot of problems. We can see some trees knocked down. I mentioned that. Utility poles could be knocked down, and those can certainly hit power cables, power lines. We could be talking about power outages, cable, internet, all these type of things could be knocked out for folks who rely on, of course, Wi-Fi and the power in their home, their apartment. And worse than that, structures like the trees and power lines could certainly fall on homes, trailers, vehicles, which is never great, and hopefully no one are in or around that when it happens, because it could lead to injuries or worse. All right, speaking of that too, I'll piggyback off that, Sam, over to our tornado warning safety tip graphic here. And again, I can't reiterate this enough. It sounds almost too simple, but getting away from the windows, it's tempting to take pictures and video. We do appreciate that if you can actually get us a picture and video, but we don't want to put you in harm's way. It is not worth it until after the storm has passed. If you were, of course, outside, you can't be outside. If you know someone driving in this area, in the warning zone, you need to tell them there's a bad storm coming, and they need to either get to where they're going right away or at least stop and be aware of what is happening around them. Let's get over to that warning, let's get over to the next item on the safety graphic here for you. So getting away from the windows, I mentioned that. You don't want glass to cut you or worse. And of course, this recommendation I got from Monday night, and one of my colleagues here, is hopefully you're not barefoot and not wearing socks. You have sneakers or shoes. Why? Because if glass were to break in a home or maybe a vehicle or anywhere you may be, you don't want to walk on broken glass. It could cut your feet. That's a very serious thing. So having some kind of protective measure for your feet. Okay, you want it to be inside and in the basement. It's a very common theme because you have concrete walls protecting you at least on the sides and not having windows. And also if you can get yourself a thick, heavy quilt or mattress or something to pull over yourself and protect yourself if you are actually in the path of this, that will hopefully prevent injury or worse. The cell phone being charged kind of goes without saying, but if you do lose power, you have a newfound respect for your cell phone because you always seem to have a way to charge it. Now you may not if you have the power knocked out. And lastly here, of course, covering your head. If you have a helmet or something you can put on your head because you don't want debris or anything to hit you and hopefully not anything worse happen to you, that would be another great recommendation. If you are just joining us here, we have breaking coverage, breaking weather of a tornado warning here in Oswego County. It is in effect for parts of the county until 8:15. It looks like it's kind of central southwestern sections of the county. And I don't know if anyone watching us out into western parts of the county, like Oswego, Minetto, out towards far eastern areas, maybe over towards Sterling, Dexterville, you're not in the warning anymore, but if you have any reports that you could pass along to our newsroom, of course, that would be very appreciative. North of Volney, you are in the warning. Palermo, up to the north into Mexico, you're also in the warning. I want to zoom in a little bit and just make sure I can catch all the towns and villages in here. I know Samantha Crossan is busy with looking up and checking on some information here. We're going to have a look at maybe some power outages in the area and any of the Oswego County dispatch of any reports of damage too. That would be appreciative if Sam was able to do that, and we can share that in a few moments here. But here are some other towns that are in the warning for the moment. Munger's Corners, over towards Catfish Corners, Pete Corners, over towards, say, Volney down the south, and again, wrong, Route 3 north and south through the county. Here is Route 104. It is part of the warning after all, especially sections here between, say, Grafton Square out to the east and New Haven out to the west. Right in here, anyone traveling in that area, there could also be some not great weather happening that could lead to some damage. I'm going to pull up the radar for us so we can see in real time what's happening here. And in my opinion here, just using the Montague radar for the moment, if I were to pinpoint where a warning potentially could be issued from, it's this little piece right here. Let me see if I can draw it with my marker. I'm going to go back to the TV screen. So right in here is where we have a little bit of a curve, almost like a hook, kind of like a bending, like I'm bending my arm like this. If you can see that on the screen, that would be where some winds are coming into the storm like so, and then wrapping around it on the back side of it right here. And usually in this area is where you have almost like they call it a couplet. It's kind of like if I were to go like this and kind of couple my hands where one is kind of circulating around the other, and you get that rotation occurring potentially. Vertical rotation, you got to get horizontal rotation first, like a rolling pin, rolling cookie dough, and then eventually the downdraft bends that circular, like a helix down to the ground. And that's why you see in videos on the internet and TV of tornadoes out west, they don't just go down straight, they bend down to the ground. Okay, Sam, I don't know if you've been able to look up any information so far and see anything that we can add into the conversation.
Josh, thank you so much. We're looking at National Grid's power outage map at this direct moment. Right now, nothing reported in Oswego, but we are seeing outages in some other parts of the state. So again, there is a tornado warning in Oswego County. It's until 8:15 p.m. And Josh, at this point, what I'm curious about, and we know some people are maybe tuning in right now, as far as what a tornado warning actually means, what should people be aware of and how much of a threat is there right now?
Yeah, Sam, so again, we don't get severe or tornado warnings that often in our area, but when they do happen, what happens is basically it's wind. Wind is the biggest impact from a severe thunderstorm warning, or in this case, a tornado warning. But the winds, as we saw back on Monday, and I don't like to say that tonight is going to be a repeat of that because we've only had one tornado warning so far, is the fact that we're talking about winds being very condensed together, but high speed. And this thing is moving, it's not standing still. So that's why we're concerned here tonight about some of the wind.
Okay, Josh, another question. I know that you went over some of the safety precautions, at least at this direct moment. But, just in the minutes to come, is there anything that people should be doing right now just to make sure that they're staying as safe as they possibly can be?
Yeah, we'll do some common sense things here, Sam. Basically, what I would say is if they're watching you and I right now, giving out the information about the warning, hopefully they're not watching near a window. They're doing it in a safe space, a safe part of their home, part of their apartment. If you're in a vehicle in this area, that's not great because the vehicle, unfortunately, could certainly get damaged. It's not secure. Vehicles are very heavy, but also the fact is they're outside, not protected by a structure. What I will say here, Sam, as we just kind of saw in the air behind me here, it looks like that warning was discontinued. I'm not saying it's all done yet, but the warning did go away, looks like a little bit earlier than 8:15, and we still have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 8:45 for northeastern sections of Oswego County. So there's still some storms going on. But as I've been saying, how I was not totally impressed by the radar here with this storm trying to do its rotation thing. Yeah, it makes sense, at least for the moment, unless the Weather Service decides they're going to extend it. But the fact that they cut it off early is telling me they probably will not do that. So that's some good news. It looks like maybe some of the oomph and the energy with this thing is kind of going away, but still plenty of thunder, lightning, heavy rainfall, and still some strong gusty winds in the area, Sam.
Josh, at this direct moment, we're still just kind of waiting through the minutes here to see exactly how this all plays out. One thing you were mentioning earlier is the difference between a watch and a warning. And I think that that's something that some of our viewers might still be confused by. I know I am a bit. So I was wondering if you could just kind of break down the difference between those two things.
Sure thing, Sam. So over the weekend, like last weekend before Monday and last night before today, I like to use this graphic, and I use an analogy with food because we mix so many different types of food ingredients together to create something. Well, Mother Nature, when this warning is issued, is creating this tornado. She's trying to by taking different types of ingredients in the atmosphere. But if the ingredients are on the table and they're not stirred in the mixing bowl, you just got to watch. Like we've been having all afternoon. We have that watch until 9 p.m. for a tornado possibly forming. It doesn't mean it's formed yet. It means it's possibly coming up. It's on deck, using that analogy for baseball. It's on standby, but a warning, as we're seeing now, means dangerous weather is about to happen, means all those ingredients are mixed together in the right way, in the right order, and in the atmosphere, sometimes temperature and pressure and wind all have to work together just right to get something to generate something like this. Like the ones they surveyed back on Monday. They surveyed a lot of these tornadoes back on Monday for multiple locations, so they have to see which way the winds go down. So watch, to sum it up, Sam, is it's getting ready to happen, but it hasn't happened yet, and a warning means that it's either happening now or about to happen very, very soon.
And Josh, for the people who are just joining us right now, again, we are in that tornado warning. I'm curious what the percentage is that a tornado actually hits, and what are the areas that could possibly be seeing it?
Yeah, Sam, so I would say the chance of any one given area getting hit by one of these is very low. But we've seen a history here in Central New York over the years where warnings can certainly occur in an area. Unfortunately, we've had some folks who've lost their lives because it could be anything. They weren't notified or it just happened so quick. Trailers or loose structures can certainly be impacted by this, by trees or the wind is knocking it over, unfortunately. So yeah, to answer your question, it's very low, but not zero. And I think the big story for tonight is the threat for wind and rain is still around. It's just we don't have the tornado warning in effect at this moment. So yeah, that's a cool shot there up in Oswego. I've been looking at our Stanley cans in Syracuse, Sam, too. We still have some partial sun out in downtown Syracuse. So there's still a lot of energy left in the atmosphere for maybe some more of these storms to occur. But as of now, we're still looking at the alert map behind me here. I'm going to double check this too, that we don't have any extension of this alert. It's a good thing. It's a good sign for all of us to really know about for right now. Sam, have you heard anything or seen anything maybe as far as reports or accidents or something? I can check a couple reports here for some storm damage possibly. Let's see if I can find some here. Not in Oswego County yet, which this could be a little bit delayed too if I was actually getting a report. But yeah, the good news here is it looks like we're not seeing an extension of a warning. It looks like it's kind of wound down. We're just looking at general storms in the area and possibly just straight line wind and not tornadic winds, which is a good thing, Sam.
It really is. And Josh, to your question, there are no outages reported at this point. That's one thing that we can say with certainty. We're also going to take a look at the SUNY Oswego campus at some point coming up in the next few moments, just off the shores of Lake Ontario, so you guys can all just kind of get a grasp of what exactly is going on there and how the weather looks. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we're just trying to take you through this tornado warning that initially it said would be done by 8:15. And Josh, what's the latest on that as far as has this warning since been called off, or is the tornado warning still in effect at this direct moment?
Yes, Tim, I just checked the National Weather Service page for Binghamton and Buffalo, and at this time, there is no tornado warning no longer in the area. What they did is they put out this report called a severe weather statement or special weather statement, they sometimes call it, and basically, They say as of now, the storm which prompted the warning has moved out of the area. Therefore, the warning has been canceled. And I think, in my opinion, too, it's also weakened considerably since earlier. Here is the parish area, looking at basically a map here showing maybe some outages in this vicinity here, just east of Parish along Route 69. Here's Happy Valley Wildlife Management Area. Toad Harbor Rod and Gun Club is down the south here. Klondike State Forest is out to the southeast here. So there could be some outages in some of our neighbors up into parts of Oswego County there near Parish. And I am also going to check on the alert map one more time on my end, Sam. Yes, extension now, they've allowed the storm that had produced that tornado warning to really just continue it to be a severe thunderstorm warning. Places like Palermo, Mexico, Bethel Corners, Hastings, Dugway, Richland, out to Amboy, Greenboro, and Redfield. So still the potential there for damaging wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. That can still cause damage and still knock down trees and or lead to power outages, along with the threat for some hail, 1 inch or size of a quarter or larger, to also possibly cause some damage. So I feel a little bit better the fact that we don't have that extended tornado warning, Sam, instead of it continuing on for maybe another 45 minutes.
Sure, and Josh, initially we knew that 8:15 was the cutoff time. Since then, we're now seeing that a tornado warning is no longer in effect. What are the factors that go into making that decision, and why did they decide to cut it off early?
Yeah, so they do this a lot sometimes, even with flood alerts or severe thunderstorm warning alerts. And basically, it's all based on the radar trend. I'm just going to pull it up behind me while I help to answer your question here. The storms are not all done. They've just kind of taken a breather. Maybe they were doing a set, and then they were kind of now saying, you know what, we're recharging. We're getting a break, and they're trying to still hold together here. This is what I mean. You can still see some darker reds, even a little bit of pink here where I'm pointing on the map. This spot still could have some hail with it, and that's why they continued the severe warning, not the tornado warning, because they're not really seeing the indications on radar of the rotation anymore. That's kind of a base answer, is that the weakening of the storm, but it's not just poof, it's gone. It's just kind of a lower grade alert, lower grade threshold for severe weather. A tornado warning, of course, is much worse, because the winds are usually much higher than 60 miles per hour. Some of the storms back on Monday were upwards of, I believe I remember seeing reports of 80 miles per hour for one of them, 140 miles an hour for another. That's like double what the winds, or triple what they would be for a general severe thunderstorm in our area.
Josh, at this point, the warning is over. It was initially scheduled to be over at 8:15. It has since ended early. Again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us and continuing along with our weather coverage here. But Josh, that warning now out of place, but is there still a risk? Are there any dangers? And if so, what are they as we kind of continue on into the night?
Yeah, Sam. So what I want to do too is let everybody know that we still have that watch for a tornado watch in effect until 9 o'clock, and right now it's what, 8:12. So it doesn't mean that just because this warning is done that we're all done with storms altogether. We still have a lot of unstable air in our area. We have a front nearby, and we have, of course, still some storms off the west, which I can share with you here briefly. But this one I want to show you here, this is called a scope. What we usually do is we focus our area on trying to see if we see some reds and greens close together. That is where the winds are in different directions, very close by. So it's showing very, very minimal rotation with that, showing the winds in different directions nearby. So not as concerning as it was maybe a short while ago or maybe a half an hour ago. Let me widen out the radar view and just show you if there are any storms off to our west that we still have to deal with. So in western New York, you can see there are some out over Lake Ontario right here. There's some lightning there going on, downpours in Wayne County, and also still plenty of storms and some rain down across the Finger Lakes. So we are not completely done with storms just yet, Sam. It is a matter of time. And of course, we're losing the sun now. That's a good thing, but we still have a lot of instability in the atmosphere to allow for storms to continue. It's just a matter of fact, if the winds move in the right direction, if those ingredients, remember I mentioned those on the table, if they kind of shift around each other just right to cause maybe a little bit of that spin. So not as concerning, but still some of a concern with the threat for some wind damage in the area.
Well, Josh, again, thank you so much for your coverage, and I am hearing that we are going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. So, folks, thank you so much again for joining us. Samantha Crossan alongside Josh Kozlowski, just kind of bringing you all of the information that we can right now. There was a tornado warning. We are outside of that threat at this direct moment. But, Josh, you mentioned this earlier. I think while we're here, we may as well just continue to educate and inform our viewers or anyone who is tuned in. That tornado warning, you mentioned that here, especially in Syracuse and the central New York region, this isn't something that we really see all that frequently. Why do you think that we're seeing it now, and how often does this really happen in the central New York region?
Well, Sam, great question here. I would say this. We live in a unique part of the United States. We have got different topography, hills, valleys, and one thing in particular, sometimes the winds can channel down the Mohawk Valley from the east. We got winds coming in from the south, and they kind of try to work together to create that little bit of spin in any one storm. And of course, you got the mid-levels, the high levels. There's just so many different things to really answer that question. But the simple answer I can give you, Sam, is this. It just has to happen just the right way at just the right time to really get it going. And that's why it doesn't happen in the winter. That's why it doesn't really happen so much in, say, the fall. It's summertime, usually spring and summer. And specifically here in Central New York, it is a very unique thing and doesn't really happen all that much compared to areas out the west across the Tornado Alley area. One thing too I want to make a point out here would be our Weather Authority app. That's a great tool. You've got our live coverage here. You've got cnycentral.com for weather coverage. We've had an alert story up all afternoon long. You can always refresh that to get the maps. But specifically on the Weather Authority app, we've got alerts, we got the extended forecast, we got temperatures, live radar, and if you do use the radar, and Sam, I know you do, I do as well, you got to make sure you go down to the bottom and hit the play button. You can't just look at a static radar. You have to see which way the storms are moving, towards you, away from you, paralleling you, so you know if they're coming at you or if you are better off in not seeing that danger come your way. Okay.
All right, Josh, well, thank you so much. I think that just about wraps up our questions, but I did just want to ask before we hop off the air if there's just anything else that you would like to tell our viewers about, educate them on, or just any last minute reminders before we sort of take a break here.
Yeah, so I'll tell you this, Sam. Basically, the threat for severe while it's winding down, I would say this. If you got damaged last week, or you know about the alerts that happened on Monday, and you know about the alert that happened tonight here, and if you happen to know someone who got damaged, or you know a place that got damaged, my advice is this. The next time that there's a tornado warning, the next time a severe weather warning of any nature, wind, flooding, use our tools, take it at face value, and understand that it's not necessarily to scare or deter anyone from wanting to be outside, is to inform, empower, protect, and make sure you get that right information to make great decisions and keep you and your family safe. All right, so that will be our coverage for now on this breaking weather situation, and we'll join us, if you join us tonight live on CW6 News at 10. We'll have updates also on NBC3 News at 11. Thank you.